Here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here. Today on the big program, lots to get to, lots to talk about. Our final show of 2021. I hope everyone has a wonderful, incredible, healthy, happy holiday season. But our last show of the year until, well, after the first of the new one. And looking forward to the new one with great anticipation, with renewed vigor and energy, and an excitement to actually get things done. Regroup, re-energize, and refocus. But a little time with the family. Over the next week, we're going to be playing some of our favorite interviews over the last year. Some of the movers, shakers, some of the folks that we really enjoyed having conversations with. Hope you enjoy that. You can also email me anytime, rick@thericksmithshow.com. I will be checking in and out, doing some of that stuff. But hope you enjoy it and look forward to the new year. Let's start in with, right from the beginning, former Brooklyn Center police officer Kim Potter found guilty on manslaughter charges in the death of Dante Wright, first and second degree manslaughter charges there. Pulled the guy, 20-year-old black guy, over for what? Something stupid. Air freshener in the rearview mirror. And this is the kind of things, not surprising, happens all the time. Part that's surprising, a little bit, I think I am, is that she's been found guilty. Claims she pulled the wrong weapon, meant to pull the taser, pulled the gun. Maybe she did. On the video, she is screaming taser. I don't doubt that. But if you're a police officer for 26 years, I think, at least I hope, you know the difference. And as I've said many, many times, I support the police when they're not wrong. And in this, I gotta be honest, wrong. Now, as I said, slightly surprised by the verdict. I was expecting some forgiveness. Oops, it was an accident. Could happen to anyone. Not the case, and not in this environment. I think maybe 5 years ago, a couple of years before George Floyd, absolutely. I think this, I don't even know that this goes to trial. But it'll be interesting to see where this goes. But now look, I grew up in a housing project on the west side of Cleveland. I've seen police officers get away with some sketchy, questionable stuff. So, I mean, that's where my skepticism comes from. And, you know, especially in minority communities where I grew up, you see a lot of things that get ignored. For instance, just the other night, I happened to watch the documentary 137 Shots. I know, some late night fall asleep to kind of TV viewing. But that tells you what kind of a world that I live in. And I find it incredible that in that shooting in Cleveland, not one police officer was held accountable. There was one guy that went on trial, not guilty. I don't know how you shoot 137 shots into a car with two unarmed people in it and have one cop jump up on top of the hood and fire, multiple shots into the car on top of the hood into. I don't know how that happens without somebody going to jail. But, different times we're in now, and I got to be honest, there's part of me that goes, we need massive change. But we'll see how this goes. Also, Jim Jordan. You may remember yesterday we talked about Jim Jordan, the representative from Ohio, and the January 6th committee wanting to have a little conversation, a little chat. What were you doing? Who were you talking to? He's already said, hey, he talked with Trump, and this is the part that just blows my mind. Doesn't really know when he talked to Trump on January 6th or what they talked about. Could have been, what they had for breakfast. Could have been their bowel movements. I don't know. But, just doesn't remember. It's kind of slipped his mind. When the major moment in American history in most of our lifetimes have hit, it's kind of, I guess, it just slips the mind. It gets in there with getting the kids to soccer and stuff like that. But evidently, according to him, he has real concerns with the committee. He hasn't ruled it out like Scott Perry, my congressman, did. He hasn't said, no, you're illegitimate. And, oh, did you see that guy over there? Go get him. Yeah. He didn't do that yet. It may be coming, but he has kind of waffled a bit and kind of trying to, I guess he's weighing his options through the holiday season. And look, as we see, there's a mountain of evidence that they're bringing out. And as I said from the beginning, like any parent knows, and I tell my kids this all the time, so if you're listening, remember I told you this. If I'm asking you a question, I already know the answer. Like any good attorney going into a courtroom, they don't ask questions they don't have the answer to because you don't want to get caught looking stupid. This is the same thing. They already know. They've documented your treason. They already know. They're just giving you enough rope to hang yourself. And this is one of those questions that I keep coming back to. Why? Like I said, there's a growing mountain of evidence that points to the fact that Trump was the main organizer of this. That he was the guy behind this whole push to overturn the election and remain in power. And this is one of those things where, I learned this back in elementary school. I went to Catholic school for a number of years, and I did not learn Latin. I think the only words I know in Latin were "que bono," and that is to whose benefit. That's all I learned, and that wasn't even from that. That was from philosophy class. But who benefits from what happened on January 6th? Who was the one who ultimately was the one who was going to benefit? And it's Trump. There's no other question. It was Trump. So everything that was done from every one of these representatives, every one of these senators, every one of these front groups, it was all about making sure that Trump stayed in power and ultimately that they held on to power. And now they're looking back and they're going, oops, that didn't work out as we had hoped. And now, like any good criminal syndicate, as Trump himself has said, only the mob takes the fifth. Now the criminal syndicate is circling the wagons. They're not wanting to testify. They don't want to be put under oath. They don't want to be asked any questions. They don't want their culpability in this to be exposed. And I look at someone like Scott Perry, who, had you laid this out to me, 3 years ago and said, "Hey, this is what he would do," I would go, "Absolutely. I don't doubt it." Because Scott Perry has always been one of those extreme politicians out on the fringe of the party, who, bright guy, good-looking guy, military credentials, but I'm not buying the whole love of American democracy thing. I'm buying the authoritarian stuff. And this is what we're seeing. Those type of people saw their opportunity. This was their moment. This is what the whole conservative movement has been building toward. This is what all those think tanks and the state policy networks and all of the messaging machines, this is what it was about. And oops, they dropped the ball. They didn't think Mike Pence had a spine. And here's the bizarre part of this. Mike Pence was the guy who stopped everything from happening. If he doesn't certify that election on election night, or on January 6th, if he doesn't certify that, all of their plans that we found in the 2-page memo from Eastman and the 36-page memo on PowerPoint, all of that stuff then rolls into place. And then you see the dominoes start to fall. And ultimately, we have a real constitutional crisis, which they were willing to push the bounds. Now, look, I'm somebody who, I am one of the most fierce competitors. That I will find every rule in the book to try and figure out how to make my argument. And I expect that from anyone. I expect everyone, when they get into the ring and they start throwing punches and they start taking shots, that they're going to do whatever they can do within the bounds of the rules to be able to win. I completely understand that. These people know this. What they've done is out of the bounds, which is why you're not seeing them come forth and go, yeah, this is what we did. Yeah, we were just fighting for our guy. You're not seeing them come forth and stand up and say, yeah, damn right, we did it. And we do it again because we're fighting the good fight. They're not doing that because they know what happened on January 6th was on them. And that they are responsible, which is why, again, you're not seeing Not seeing Scott Perry come forth and say, "You're damn right I did it. You're damn right I put my friend Jeffrey Clark up to be Attorney General so he could be the guy that allows all this stuff to go into place. Damn right I did." You don't see it. And you're not going to. Because they know. And they're now trying to cover it up. Like any good, like any crime group. If you're doing the criming, you're going to try and get out of it. And good on Benny Thompson and the January 6th committee for moving forward. And as my friend Bob Ney said last night, they should be using the ethics committee. Today'd be a good day for Scott Perry to get called in. Merry Christmas, Scott. Ethics committee, here you come. To me, that's where we should go. But we'll see in the new year where this takes us. A little surprising thing happened today to turn the things a little bit. I'm actually going to give Donald Trump a little bit of credit. I know. I hope you were sitting down. Don't want anybody falling, driving off the side of the road. But Trump was being interviewed by this Candace Owens, who I view as kind of a kook. But she's got her shtick. She needs to make a living like everybody else. She's got bills to pay. So if you're going to play the sycophant, you got to do what you got to do. But she's talking to Trump about the vaccine and about the COVID and all this stuff. And Trump goes, "Look, I came up with the vaccine. 3 vaccines, in fact, not just 1, 3. And they told me couldn't do it. They said it'd take, 5 to 12 years. He said, I did it in less than 9 months, he said. And she kind of throws back at him going, but Donald, more people have died with COVID this year. By the way, she points out, under Joe Biden, more died under Joe Biden than under you. And more people took the vaccine, she said. So people are questioning, because she's throwing it out there that the vaccine is killing people. Not the fact that, I would argue more people are reporting it, but that's a whole other thing. And he kicks back. He said, "Oh, no. The vaccines work. Some people aren't the ones who get very sick and go to the hospital are the ones who don't take the vaccine, but it's still their choice. And if you take the vaccine, you're protected." And I read that verbatim. He almost sounded like he had a cogent thought, saying, look, the people who are dying aren't the ones who took the vaccine. The people who are dying are the idiots who are going, "Oh, I'm taking no vaccine." Those are the people who are dying from it. Even Trump gets this. He says, look, the results of the vaccine are very good, and if you get it, it's very minor form. It means you're going to if you get the COVID, you're going to be a mild form of sickness. You're going to be okay. He says people aren't dying when they take the vaccine, which kind of just blew her head. And he goes, look, he's against vaccine mandates. He's against mask mandates, all that stuff. He says, you have freedom. And I'm going, yeah, you have the freedom of stupid people to not get vaccinated and to be the ones who end up dying from it. And I'm going, this is a central problem for the right, because they want to beat Biden up. They want to beat him up over the vaccine. They want to beat him up over his response. They want to say, look, it's all your fault that things aren't going well and that we're not whipping this. And they got their dear leader saying, no, the vaccine's the best tool we've got. You should get it. This is the way we can get beyond this and this not be a problem. Now, Biden, I think, did a really smart thing. He came out and he thanked Trump. Said, look, we're able to do this stuff because the past administration moved through, got us what we needed thanks to the prior administration, our scientific community. America was one of the first countries to get a vaccine, said Biden. And Trump was like you have to deal with Trump. Pat him on the back and say, "Oh, you're so wonderful. You're so cute. You're so great. We love you. Thank you." And he did that. And Trump's like, I can't beat him up now. I can't say bad things about him because he was nice to me. And this has got to be sending the right wing into a tizzy, because ultimately they want to beat Biden up for how many people are dying and how much this has not gone away. And even Trump is looking and going, no. The reality in this is you guys aren't doing what we need you to do, which is to get vaccinated and stop being the stick in the mud. Stop being the fly in the ointment, or was the other guy, the turd in the punch bowl. Stop. Even Trump is saying vaccines are safe. He's gotten them. He's gotten the booster. And this is that weird world for the Trumpkins because, they want to follow dear leader to the ends of the earth, but not on this because it doesn't fit their narrative. And understand, their narrative is don't get vaccinated. The heck with them. They're trying to control us. You can't make us do what we don't want to do. And it's making things worse. And they're happy about that because then they can turn around and go, see, Joe Biden isn't doing anything. And I've argued Biden has done almost as much as he can do. He can't force people to do it. He's throwing mandates out there. If you're not going to listen to it, we're not going to hold people down in this country and jab them in the arm. That is never going to happen. I would never support it. I don't know anyone who would. But saying, look, if you don't do it, you can't play with the rest of us. You don't get to be in the sandbox. I don't see that as too far. And I doubt that Trump would either. Now, interestingly enough, the Wall Street Journal had an interesting take on the virus. They said that the Omicron variant, the variant's aggressive advance is the latest twist in the course of a disease that public health experts say is on a path towards becoming endemic in the U.S., which means we're going to have it for a very long time. It's going to not have an end date. And we've always said this. This is something we're going to eventually have to figure out how it just, it's one of those things that, we kind of get past. But they said rather a crisis that engulfed the world within months. The coronavirus's discovery in China will dissipate in fits and starts into something that feels more like normal over the course of years, which means that we're going to have this for a while. And if we get vaccinated, we do things we're supposed to, we're going to get to the other side of it. And this is where I go back to Trump's statement. The people who are dying, the people who are getting the most sick, those are the ones who, aren't. And this is where the choice comes in. You can choose to get vaccinated and you'll be protected, or you can choose to not. And maybe, the numbers aren't high, but maybe we don't have you around next year. That is just how the game is played. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, what are the Democrats going to do next year after what has been a bruising couple of months here? Stick around. Right back after this. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1946. That was the day a general strike erupted in Oakland, California. Workers, mostly women, had been on strike for a month at 2 downtown department stores. Teamsters honored their picket lines and refused to make deliveries. Infuriated owners of Hastings and Conn's demanded their merchandise and turned to the city for help. And on this day, police assembled early in the morning to clear the streets of picketers. They attacked strikers, forcing them off the street and setting up a perimeter of machine guns to escort scab delivery trucks through the line. One striker recalled, "I was black and blue for 6 months from their clubs." Outraged truck drivers, bus drivers, and streetcar operators all stopped, got out of their vehicles, and joined the strikers, quickly filling downtown Oakland. By the end of the day, the city was completely shut down. 142 AFL unions called for a labor holiday in support of the strikers, and now 130,000 workers were on strike in solidarity. UAW member Stan Weir recalled that it was the bus drivers, many just returned from the war, who led the strike. The streets that night had a carnival-like atmosphere. War vets led a march to City Hall to demand the resignation of the mayor and city council for their attempts to break the strike. The general strike quickly forced the administration to stop the scab herding. But local labor leaders were divided over what some considered a near insurrection and called the strike off 54 hours later. The retail workers were left to fight on their own for another 5 months. But for a few days, workers got a taste of their own power. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. If you've got a question, comment, thought on your mind. You're looking at Trump's comments. You surprised by it? You surprised that Trump, who wants to be the grandfather of the vaccine, the founder of the vaccine, that he's going to fight back and say, no, the narrative that conservatives are throwing out there is BS because it actually hurts his legacy? I seem to think so. And I'm actually not surprised by it. Also, today, President Biden told ABC that if the only thing standing between getting voting rights legislation passed and not getting passed is the filibuster, he supports making an exception for voting rights to the filibuster. Now, this is one of those things that he has said in the past, not really in favor of doing away with the filibuster. I personally think it should go. I'm a fan of talking filibusters. If you want to stop the proceedings, if you think things should be shut down, then by all means, get out there and explain. Tell me what it is that you're against. And on the voting rights front, this is what debate is supposed to be. The filibuster is supposed to not allow the shutting down of debate. You should have to continue until you're out of words. And then once you're out of arguments and you're out of words, or if you just want to get up there and read the phone book, the American people should be able to see that that's your argument. Your argument isn't about voting rights. It's simply about delay. And then once you're done, you either get laryngitis or you got to go to the bathroom or whatever, your bucket fills up, I don't know, then you vote on this stuff. And if you get a majority of the vote, that's how you do this. And look, this is where politics has consequences. If you go too far, this is where people go, you went too far, we vote people in, and you go back the other way. This idea that the Senate is where the adults are. The Senate is where the learned, more deliberative body is, well, how nothing gets done. I've said for decades, the Senate is the place where progress goes to die, especially things that would help the working class of this country. And we've seen this time and time again. In my lifetime, the things that could help workers and their families that, we just can't afford it. How are you going to pay for it? We can't do that. That would hurt business. But what business wants, oh boy, oh boy, they get it. Now I look at this story from Augusta, Georgia, and the question I have is in talking about voting rights, because we hear people all the time, say, I would do whatever. And I've said this before, I'll do whatever I need to do to have my vote cast. And I live in an area where most of the time my vote doesn't matter because it's a decidedly 65-35 district. It's been gerrymandered and it is part of where it is. So, it's going to be skewed one way or the other regardless. But even with the gerrymandering, and it gets even worse. Would you drive 46 miles round trip to cast a ballot? Especially in an election that really, you're not going to ever change. And I had to sit and think about this today because I can say in the last, I've lived where I am at now for what is it, over 15 years, 16 years now. Never once has my vote mattered in those 16 years because the races have never been competitive because the voting numbers are so skewed. Now, when I lived in other places where there were more competitive districts, my vote mattered. But where I live now in central Pennsylvania, it doesn't really matter. As a Democrat in one of the reddest areas in the country, my vote is more an act of citizenship, of defiance and of hope more than anything. Now, the presidential, yes, it matters. In the statewide races, yes, it matters, but locally, not so much. And the question that came up is, would you drive 46 miles round trip to cast that ballot? Now, I'm fortunate. I could literally walk to my polling place, and I've never waited more than 15 minutes because in rural Pennsylvania, we've always seemed to have, a good number of voting machines where, the elections it doesn't take 10 hours to get to cast your ballot. It's never happened. 10 hours, it never happened. Now, you move to some urban areas where, my hometown of Cleveland, you could easily see 10-hour lines, which is insane. Tells me there aren't enough precincts. Tells me there aren't enough places to have machines for people to vote on. Tells me we're making it too difficult, which is why I point to Augusta, Georgia. As you know, Georgia is one of the hot spots for voter suppression. They're one of the places that has passed a number of laws to make it harder for people to vote, to give the state more control on how the elections are done, and gives them power to, lots of shenanigans. Let's put it that way. They're able to disband county election boards, for instance. And in this position, earlier this year, they moved to disband the Lincoln County Board of Elections. Lincoln County is a small rural county, about 7,700 people, mostly white, majority white, 28% black. They are in the process of, this is happening, of taking that county and moving from 7 precincts around the county, strategically located to make it easier to get to one centralized location, which means if you're on the outskirts of the county, you could have to drive 23 miles to get to the polling place. And then obviously 23 miles back. So that's where the 46 miles round trip comes from. Would you do that? And, you go, why is it that we're moving from 7 polling places down to 1? Now you go, well, they're having a hard time finding people to demand the polls. We're having, whatever that is. Or is it, we're just trying to cut down on the number of people having access to the ballot box? This is the thing that's frightening to me. This power that they have without any oversight body, which is why I think Congress absolutely has to act, and immediately, on voting rights. This would have never happened before the Supreme Court Shelby versus Tennessee, or Shelby versus Holder case. This kind of thing could have never happened. You would have had to get pre-clearance from the government to be able to make these kind of radical changes. But since the Supreme Court said, no, all those southern states that had those problems in the past, they're so much better now. Are you looking at Lincoln County? Did you look at Randolph County in 2019, where they wanted to close almost all? At one point, they wanted to close all of them, and then they wanted to close all but 2. And you go, but where are all of these majority black voters going to vote? Well, especially in places like these rural areas that don't have public transportation, that don't have transit to get you to and from, that don't have a mechanism to be able to help in that. And this is where Democrats had better take the opportunity and deal with this. And again, it comes down to Manchin and Sinema and a handful of other, I'm not going to go with centrist Democrats. I'm going to go with institutionalists. Let's go with that. That, hey, this is how we've always done it. You know those people. We've always done it wrong, but hey, it's how we've always done it. And it's worked for their interests. And this is where I think Democrats in the new year better go home, enjoy family time. Maybe like the Grinch, find something that's going to get 3 times bigger. Grab a set, get a pair of, and a spine, and get back in and start pushing. Because look, these last couple of months for Democrats has not been great. And the media has been attacking them as well. They're in a mess. They're they're depressed. They're doing all this stuff that's tearing them. They're in disarray. Go home, re-energize, and come back and start fighting for things that the American people want. Voting rights is the main thing. You don't get something done on voting rights, 2022 is over, because the Republican states, and as I talked about yesterday, there are 19 states across this country that have changed voting rights and voting laws to make it harder for people to vote and make it easier for the states to overturn elections. If you don't do something to fix that, it's game over. And then all of the issues that we care about, all of the issues that we need to be fighting on, they all go away. And that's the thing that's most frightening here. Because I have people say, well, we need to fight for abortion rights, because overwhelmingly the American people believe that women should have access to safe, legal, reproductive care. Absolutely, I should have that. We should be fighting on that. If you don't have the ability to vote, that's gone. And look, that's an issue that could be mobilizing people. That's an issue that could be taking us in ways to be able to push and to fight. But none of this stuff matters if they're able to stop our ability to vote. I think of my state of Pennsylvania. If not for the governor, all of the craziness that we see in Georgia and Texas and Florida and elsewhere is right here. Ohio. I said this the other day. Pennsylvania seems like the last state to help out Ohio in the event that Ohio goes as crazy as they are. But if we get a Republican governor in 2022, look out, Ohio. We might be running to your borders for sanity. And the problem is Democrats have taken to this narrative that the party's in disarray. The party's not in disarray. The vast majority of the party is going, no, we need to move forward on things. We need to make lives better. It's a handful at the maximum of politicians who are holding things up, and it comes back to our system. It comes back to the fact that the Senate, again, is where good ideas go to die. And it goes back to the fact that the Republican Party is united in opposition to progress. I don't see stories coming out of the New York Times or the Washington Post or any of the online, the Politicos or the Hill or any of those saying, the Republican Party, stops progress. But it's what's happened over the last 40 years. It is absolutely without question what has happened. But our news media doesn't point that out. And we focus on Joe Manchin. Yeah, Joe Manchin's been a pain in the you-know-what. But so have 50 Republicans who have working class constituents in their state who they don't fear. And I guess for me, this is the part of that's frustrating. Look, I'm a Democrat because I don't have anywhere else to go. The Republican Party offers me nothing. Literally nothing there to offer. The Democrats used to be wholeheartedly the party of the working class. They fought for legislation. They fought for policy. They fought for a future for workers. Sadly, and we talked about this yesterday, they too have gone to be in large part the party of the wealthy and big corporations, because the moneyed interests dominate, because we're so easily divided. And until we stop, until we reunite, until we find what really is important, that it's not about right or left, it's not about Democrats or Republicans or conservatives or liberals or any of the binary choices they throw out to us, any of the red meat that the outrage candy they keep feeding us, that it's really about, well, rich and poor. It's about the Elon Musks of the world and his ilk, and then the rest of us. That's the reality. And look, I don't have a problem with Elon Musk. I have a problem with a system that created an Elon Musk. I have a problem with a system that doesn't tax Elon Musk at a rate that I think is helpful to society. I have a problem with a system that allows a billionaire class to exist in the same economy where we have children going to bed hungry at night, and a political system that won't ensure that they get a little bit of help, like the $250 a month that Manchin is so dead against, because hey, those people are going to get lazy and buy drugs with it. And yet we find out that that small amount of money, $250 per month per kid, has done an enormous amount of good. I mean, it's mind-blowing, the numbers. Childhood poverty in half. In half. Think about your own life. Is $250 a month the kind of money that is life-altering? For the majority of people, probably not. But the fact for that little bit, that small resource can cut childhood poverty in half, tells me we should not only be working to make it permanent, we should be working to help expand it so we could end childhood poverty. Now, if you want to talk about, hey, we got to target it properly and we got to do certain things, I'm with you. But the fact that we're not going to do it at all because we're just going to make lazy people dependent, because there might be a handful of people out there who are knuckleheads and do the wrong thing. Sorry, America. I'm not with you on that. Because I grew up in a neighborhood where at the end of the month there was no food. I grew up in a neighborhood where kids, shared a pair of pants. I grew up in a neighborhood where poverty was the norm, and to have a small amount of resource like that to make their lives better and give them opportunity for a future, to me is an absolute no-brainer. But as long as we got people like Manchin in power who say, no, they're just going to take drugs, I have a problem with that. And a working class that's been trained to believe that those people are lazy and that those people are only going to buy drugs. That's my problem too. I got lots of them. I'd love to hear yours. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, Ohio State Representative Casey Weinstein going to be here, share some thoughts on our healthcare system and COVID and what's going on in his state of Ohio. Quick break. Right back after this. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 2008. That was the day that Walmart stores agreed to settle 63 wage and hour lawsuits across 42 states for at least $352 million and possibly as much as $640 million. Walmart and Sam's Clubs were accused of failing to pay overtime, requiring workers to work off the clock, erasing hours from time cards, and preventing workers from taking meal and rest breaks as guaranteed by state law. The lawsuits involved hundreds of thousands of then current and former employees. You'd think they would have learned their lesson after having to shell out that amount of money. In fact, they have had to settle at least 7 more class action wage and hour lawsuits and remain a defendant in dozens more. By 2012, Walmart had settled at least 9 Equal Employment Opportunity Commission cases related to disability, gender, racial and religious discrimination in hiring, and sexual harassment. Egregious labor violations have persisted throughout their stores. Systematic wage theft, health and safety dangers, and abusive conditions on the job have continued for years. Chronic short staffing creates unsafe working conditions. In 2012 alone, they were repeatedly cited and fined by OSHA for serious violations such as blocked emergency exits, lack of safety procedures for control of power hazards, and other problems. Employees who worked with our Walmart organizers often found they were targeted with threats, reduction in hours, and terminations. More recently, Walmart has had to settle a discrimination suit over health insurance benefits for same-sex spouses. The high cost of labor violations and the low wages at Walmart cost taxpayers on average $6.2 billion a year in public assistance for many of their workers.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So, USA Today had an article out yesterday that asking the question on the accuracy of the number of people who are dying and being listed as COVID-related deaths. And, for years, for the last year, I've been hearing my conservative friends say, we're overestimating the number of people. And I'm going, I don't think so. And this article finally is starting to go, hey, are we really, accurately counting the number of people who are dying from COVID? And they went through and said, they're labeling people with autism or alcohol abuse or all kinds of things at much higher rates than historically they've been doing. And now you can say, hey, it's part of the pandemic, it's part of all this. But it also, in states like, Texas and Florida and those places, you kind of got to wonder. Now, on the other side, like I said, I have my conservative friends who say, well, we're overcounting. I don't think so, man. I'm looking at what's going on in our hospitals, and even in the little rural hospital in our neighborhood, they are packed. And the stories that I'm hearing from across the country, the same thing is true. And look, we got a lot of work to do. It's frightening. It's frightening that we can't even agree on what numbers are. Anyway, yesterday we talked about a tweet by a state representative from Ohio that I thought was interesting and something I needed to talk about. Casey Weinstein, Ohio state representative, tweeted out, was just briefed by a major hospital network CEO. It's not just that they are beyond capacity. The families of their unvaccinated patients are attacking caregivers for not giving them the right meds and quack treatments. He says 25 incidents every day. This is insane. That's why I've asked Casey Weinstein to come talk with us. Casey is, as I said, an Ohio state representative. Casey, thanks for taking time for us.
Thank you for having me, Rick. And I want to clarify that it was part of a thread, a 3-tweet thread. The first tweet got the most attention, but I want to put out a clarification today too, that it's not just unvaccinated families that are attacking, or there's aggressive security incidents on hospital workers. I guess it's happening across the patient spectrum. So I did want to make sure to be clear on that and clarify that. So the 25 number includes, attacks on hospital workers across the patient and patient family spectrum.
Yeah, and it's not just hospital workers, it's any public sector workers, anybody who deals with the public. The woman at the candy counter today was saying, I'm ready for this to be over because people are virtually attacking her over candy. And I'm like, how do you do that? But the sad thing...
go ahead. Sorry.
But the sad thing here, Casey, is you're talking about, and the stories that I've seen is, overwhelmingly you have these folks who believe the alternative facts, that all you need is some ivermectin and some vitamin C and everyone's going to be fine because all of this is a hoax. That kind of messaging is kind of frightening to me.
It is. There's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of, it's a combination of the masks and this vaccine and treatments for COVID that just have become an absolute hotbed. I mean, even Trump was out there today saying, get your vaccines. He's been on a tour for that the last couple of days. And for some reason, there's this schism where people just don't believe the science and the medicine behind them. They end up going to hospitals for treatment for COVID symptoms, but they won't trust that same medical system to inoculate them from the worst effects of this. It's just, I don't know how exactly it happened, but my concern for my constituents is always access to care, right? I want them to have access to care, and the combination of the surge of patients in the hospital, the pressure that it's putting on people, and actual safety and welfare of the healthcare workers themselves from security incidents has got me extremely concerned.
Yeah. Now, since you did make the qualifier that it's both sides of the spectrum, is it evenly both sides of the spectrum? Because I'll be honest, I find the unvaccinated to be much more vocal and angry. And in my experience in a hospital, and recently I spent some time in an ER where there were people who were vocally against the vaccine, and fairly angry on how the whole thing goes. Is it equal? Did the CEO kind of give you any guidance on that? Thoughts?
One specific example that was given was masking, people refusing to mask, and that was a flashpoint. I asked for specifics and breakdowns in terms of, where are these security incidents coming from, and they said it was across the range. They couldn't or wouldn't give me any numbers on that, but so I don't want to report anything that or make any assumptions on that. But I will say, after that tweet went out and went viral, I got hundreds of responses and messages from people in the medical system, in the medical field, who have either been attacked or know, friends, family, or have seen it happen. So, I mean, and there are articles about it. There's an AP article out about it. There have been a wide range of articles reporting these incidents against medical workers. So it's absolutely a flashpoint, but I can't put any firm number on it from that call.
Yeah. No, I'm thinking of this Reddit post that I had talked about a couple of days ago, of this doctor who, went through this whole long thing of dealing with mostly unvaccinated. He said they were unvaccinated, was assaulted in the parking lot after the patient had passed away, because the family didn't believe him and blamed him. And it was a whole bunch of weirdness where you go, how is it that in this day and age, this is how we react to things that, well, I don't know, we have tools to combat. I mean, it's kind of a weird place we're in.
It's scary for me, honestly, Rick, because our healthcare workers, first of all, you knew they were overwhelmed for dealing with this for almost 2 years, but now to know it's not just the exhaustion and the risk that they're putting themselves, personally from their health, the safety aspect added a very, dangerous new dimension for me, and it has me worried about their ability to safely staff hospitals today, but also long term. I mean, it's a hard sell to get somebody, the number of people that we need to go into medical care to want to go. I mean, we need people we need doctors, we need nurses, really. And this truly worries me about the long-term supply of healthcare coverage, because of how bad it is for them right now.
No, and this is part of, at the beginning of this pandemic, I had said that, the big concern that I had was not that I was worried that everybody was going to get sick, because the numbers of people who are going to die from it are very small. My concern was always, that if you remember, we needed to flatten the curve of getting people into the healthcare system. My problem and my concern was always blowing out our healthcare system, because what nobody is tracking, and I can't find it. Maybe you as a legislator have found some information on this. I can't find the number of people who have died from everything else besides COVID, because our hospitals are so filled with people who have COVID that the people who are having heart attacks or cancer treatments that aren't happening or whatever, that those people are dying sooner as a result of our hospitals just being packed with people, and there's nowhere to put them.
That's absolutely, I mean, that's, I guess, the decision we've made is we're going to play with hospital capacity and say, like, that's going to be our safety net is, ICU beds. And I don't have that information either. The data that I know to be true, that the governor has reported and that the Department of Health has shared, is that 90% of the COVID patients, of the thousands of COVID patients across the state in ICU, are unvaccinated. So what we can say, the most important thing to do is to get vaccinated, to get boosted, and to wear masks when required, right? Yeah. And by the way, to treat your healthcare workers with respect and patience. God.
How do you not do that? How do you not be nice to the nurses who are taking care of you? It is literally insane to me, because those are the people who are going to help keep you alive. It's so crazy. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show.
There's a lot of anger, Rick. There's anger, just a lot. And I don't know where it's coming from, but I hate that it's being directed to them. I hate it.
I'm with you. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show.
I'm angry myself.
We're here with Casey Weinstein. Casey is an Ohio State representative. Had a set of viral tweets on the issue of folks and violence towards healthcare workers, which is just nuts to me. Now, you mentioned a moment ago that Donald Trump came out and I talked about it at the beginning, the fact that he wants to be seen as the father or godfather or grandfather of the vaccine. And look, I'll give it to him. We got the vaccine during his watch, and he's actually out there, I think, in this moment, finally doing the right thing, saying, look, people who are getting the vaccine, they're not getting as sick, they're not dying, no one's dying from the vaccine. It's kind of weird when you compare that to people like Jim Jordan, you compare that to people like on Fox News who are kind of telling a whole different story, and he's supposedly their guy.
Yeah, it's you're in a dangerous place when Trump is the voice of reason in the GOP right now. Like, if his urging people to get vaccinated moves them to do so or boosted, then great, I'll take it. I mean, highly belatedly, and and I don't know how much credibility he has on it with those people, but welcome that voice to say, like, get your shot, get boosted. And what I want people to know is, in politics, I've learned that, the issues that resonate most are those that impact people in their lives, of course, right? Everybody's really busy with their lives. And so this isn't an issue that's just out there in the hospitals, not affecting you. It's affecting everybody. There are hospitals delaying, just today announced delays in elective procedures. Like you said, there's capacity issues. You worry about the stress in the system for everybody else needing care. So it is a systemic problem, and I worry that we are pushing it on the edge of collapse. That's my fear. And then we have real access to care issues.
Yeah. Now, obviously, you're a minority in the Ohio House of Representatives there. Overwhelmingly, the state is run by Republicans. The party of law and order, or at least that's what they want us to believe. At least it's what they keep telling us. What are they doing to protect our healthcare workers from this kind of abuse? Which, I don't want you to agree or disagree, which I believe overwhelmingly are probably people who vote for them. How are they going to respond to this kind of abuse? What are they planning to do? Is there any legislation that they're moving along to help protect these frontline heroes? Because remember, these were our essential frontline heroes. These were our patriotic heroes who got us through the pandemic. What are they doing to protect us?
Well, one thing I can say is that we passed a bill called HB 169, which freed up rescue plan dollars, which were passed by Democrats, that are now being dispersed into hospitals through the state. And so we did, I'll say we sent a bipartisan letter to the governor asking for more resources for staffing. So that was one thing that I'll say I was grateful for the bipartisan effort on that. In terms of protection for our workers, I don't see the voices that I want to see on the other side of the aisle talking about this. And honestly, it's, even for me, it's a relatively new dimension of where we're at in this pandemic. So I've tried to use my platform to say, look, I'm standing with healthcare workers. I stand with the teachers. I stand with the healthcare workers, the people really that have had just insane amounts of stress that they're dealing with. I mean, just for me in my daily life as a dad with young kids, it's stressful to doing this. I can't imagine. It's nowhere close to what our healthcare workers are facing. So we need to say it. We all have a responsibility to say, to stand up for them right now.
Now, this is where, I could go, well, I could easily make the response, well, you're a Democrat, you care about workers. As where Republicans constantly show me they don't care about workers, because there's a simple solution here. We pass a law to say you hit a doctor, you hit a nurse, you hit a teacher. We're going to prosecute those crimes to the fullest, and we're gonna add a little something extra to it, since obviously the laws that are on the books today aren't enough of a deterrent. There's got to be something. There's got to be a reaction to what's going on to get people to go, maybe I shouldn't do that.
Yeah, Rick, I couldn't agree more. And I talked with my staff today to see what the current landscape is, and I'm looking I'm looking at putting legislation forward. That's the bottom line. I don't exactly know what it's going to look like yet. We just started engaging on it today, but I will move aggressively on legislation to protect our healthcare workers and our teachers, but especially right now, our healthcare workers, since they are undeniably victims now of these quote unquote aggressive security incidents targeting them.
It's crazy. And I know Ohio has had a surge, much like Pennsylvania, much like most states across the country. This Omicron variant has now touched every single state. It is now the dominant, strain. Fortunately, from early reports, it's not as deadly. It's much more contagious, which may mean maybe we're going to get to somewhere the other side of this. But for right now, we've got to do something to protect our frontline workers, our heroes and patriots, while we get through all of this. And I think legislation is a start. But I also think it's, whatever happened to decency? Whatever happened to, just being respectful of someone else, which I see at a minimum in our society today.
The masking, especially, Rick, seems to be a super big flashpoint. Just from the feedback I've gotten from a range of constituents and what I see out there, and it's become all about the individual who doesn't want to mask and who isn't thinking about the other people that they could affect. Right? We all have the freedom to. We should all have the freedom to not get sick in public spaces, right? So we all got to do our part when there's a requirement for a mask. When it's required, you wear them. That's the bottom line.
I'll throw out Jim Jordan's response today to that. If masks work, why don't they work, Casey?
Okay. I try not to delve too deeply into the rabbit hole of trying to respond. Bottomless pit of logic or dislogic, or whatever you call it. The reality is, if we all band together and we all get vaccinated and get boosted and wear our masks where masks are required, we will get out of this so much faster. That's the irony, is that we're only prolonging it by not doing those things. Yeah.
And for me, this being the holiday season of cheer and joy and passing on goodwill, this should be the last time that you're attacking store clerks or nurses or doctors or anyone. But Casey,
I just want to watch Spider-Man. I just want to watch the Matrix movie. Like I want to unplug and do that. I haven't had a chance yet, but I really want to do that.
We all want to get back to something near somewhat of normal. But Casey, I appreciate you taking some time for us. I wish you the best holiday season and keep up the great work you're doing there.
Thank you so much for having me on, Rick, and same to you and yours.
Thanks so much. Casey Weinstein, Ohio State Representative. Look, it's scary times when you can't even be a nurse who's taking care of somebody without worrying about somebody's, I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com, or give us a call, 1-877-1866-416-RICK. Back after this. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1908. That was the day that 3 labor leaders of the American Federation of Labor, Samuel Gompers, John Mitchell, and Frank Morrison, were sentenced to jail terms for calling for a boycott against the Buck's Stove and Range Company. Buck's was headquartered in St. Louis. The company was notorious for being anti-union. The company's president, James Van Cleve, was president of the National Association of Manufacturers, which fought unions at every turn. In 1907, Van Cleve increased the workday from 9 to 10 hours for some of the Buck's workers. The workers went out on strike. In response, the AFL put Buck's on their "We Do Not Patronize" list. For that, the company asked the federal courts to intervene. Buck's argued that the boycott violated the Sherman Antitrust Act. The court issued an injunction. The AFL was told not to communicate about a boycott of Buck's. They were not even allowed to criticize the company in any way. The AFL leaders were also convicted and given prison terms. The AFL appealed, and the case languished through the court system until 1914. In the end, the U.S. Supreme Court dismissed the charges. Because so much time had gone by, it was past the statute of limitations. But the court did not answer the fundamental question of whether the boycott was legal in the first place. The long, expensive legal battle was a drain on the AFL's finances. Boycotts are an important tool for working people to register protest. Labor has long argued that the right to boycott is protected by the First Amendment's right to free speech. It's not surprising, however, that company owners will do anything they can to limit the power of workers. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. If you've got a question, comment, thought, something on your mind. Got an email from Janice who asked why I have not commented on the truck driver story from Colorado. And it's one of those things that I kind of in shock a little bit at the size of it. And I because it was a 110-year sentence for a truck accident, I kind of wanted to do a little additional research to find, what were the extenuating circumstances, what is it that justified this kind of enormous sentence. And what I eventually found out is that, well, it's Colorado law, and they're, because they have, minimums, and they have, he was charged with 41 counts or 42 counts, found guilty on 27 of them. The most serious was first-degree assault. And I'm going, people don't get 110 years for premeditated murder. And yet somehow, because of the sentences, this is where things are. Colorado law, required this kind of a sentence. And you go, oh my gosh. I get, minimum sentence, but this is crazy. Now the case, my initial response was, this is why I'm against the Biden administration moving the age for people to be able to drive a truck down to 18. This is the reason that I've always been opposed at allowing, 18, 19-year-olds to drive a semi. We're talking about an 80,000-pound vehicle that doesn't just stop like a car. And that if you lose control, there's no getting it back. There's no oops. There's no reset button. There's death, there's destruction. There's this. This guy was out west going through Colorado, which, if you are not an experienced driver, you can get yourself into a whole lot of trouble by not putting chains on, by not being in low enough gear, by not knowing what brake fade is. If you've never experienced it and it happens, you don't know what's coming, and you don't know what to do. And in this kid's case, this was, I guess he was 23 when it happened. Now, part of me goes, he was, an immigrant kid, working as a truck driver, probably, taken advantage of, didn't probably know his rights, or, couldn't stand up for them. But not, I would argue, not overly skilled, being from Texas, in running the Rocky Mountains, which, people who have driven on the East Coast where we have little mountains have no idea what it's like to go through the West. And everybody I know who's done that, it's dangerous. You need to have experience. And this guy didn't. And, part of the argument of why he was found guilty on so many things is that he went past a number of truck ramps, that, anyone who is experienced and understands, it's a long way down and I don't have any pedal left, takes that ramp, runs into the gravel pit. You're going to tear the truck up. You're going to do a lot of damage, but no one's going to die. And if you're empowered to do that, you're going to save lives. Now, for me, the simple answer in all of this, and there are a couple of them, the simple answer is, I don't I don't think we definitely don't lower the age for people down to 18. We do much more training for drivers. And I hear people all the time going, Rick, we're making it too hard for people to get CDLs. Yeah, there's a reason for that. There's a reason you want it to be kind of difficult, because there are things that, I don't know, maybe you should know. But the other part of this is, and I can't find anything. I can't find the testimony yet, and I'm still looking. But I want to know what the company's responsibility in this is. I want to know, why did the brakes fail? Was it operator error? Was he riding the brakes too hard? Was he not in a lower gear going downhill? Did he use it up and not know he was using them up? What made that happen? Or was it poor maintenance? Is this a company that has a history of violations? Is this a company who said, hey, sorry, there are no brakes on the trailer, but you'll be okay. Go on, take it down the road. And if you say, no, I'm not going to, they send you the curb, which is, again, why I believe every truck driver on this planet should have a union. There should not be a non-union truck on the road. And I'll say that again. There should not be a non-union truck on the road, because the one thing that I can say in my more than 1.5 million miles of riding around, I have never taken a truck on the road that I thought was unsafe. I have never taken a truck down the road where I feared that, hey, the brakes might not work. Because if I went and I inspected something and there was something not right, it got fixed before it moved. And why? Because I had the backing of my union. The union's not going to allow me to do something unsafe. And you go, but Rick, the law. You have the law on your side. Yeah. Good luck with that. It's amazing. And you ask any truck driver, have you worked for a company that's ever said, hey, push that off to PM? Yeah, I know you got a concern. Just push it off to PM. We'll get to it later. Or, hey, the tractor doesn't have any brakes. Yeah, but the trailer does. You're fine. Hey, the spring brakes aren't holding. We should get this fixed. Push it off to PM. You're fine. You're just going a little ways. The idea that no good deed goes unpunished is something that truck drivers should think of the day they touch the wheel. You protect yourself. And by protecting yourself, you're protecting the general public. And I got to wonder in this case, and look, I feel for this guy, because I in watching his, the clips of his testimony, the stuff that they had out, I don't believe he wanted to get into an accident. I don't believe anybody does. I don't believe he wanted to hurt anyone. I don't believe this was intentional. Now the prosecution, he was doing 85 and a 45. That's what happens when you don't have brakes. That's what happens when 80,000 pounds of loaded lumber are careening downhill. That's what happens when you don't take the truck ramps. And for those who don't know, a truck ramp, and there aren't a lot of them on the East Coast. I think there are a couple that I've seen. A truck ramp is simply just an uphill grade off of a downhill. So if you're going downhill, there's a little ramp that has an uphill grade, and it's all gravel. It's like 3 feet deep in gravel, and you drive into this and you sink into the gravel, and that stops you. Granted, it tears the out of everything underneath, but it will stop. It will stop the truck in a safe manner. No one's going to die, and that's the goal. Now, chances are you're going to get fired for doing it. There's going to be a whole bunch of things that go along with it, but you're going to be alive and not facing these kind of sentences. And this is where, I haven't, jumped into this because, again, I wanted to know the extenuating circumstances. And it just seems that Colorado law is screwed up. Now there's a movement now, I guess over 5 million people have signed a change.org petition to commute his sentence, to do something there, because the crash wasn't intentional. It was an accident. But 4 people did die. There should be something here, but it shouldn't be 110 years. That's a problem. So that's the reason that I got into it. I hope that explains it. Also got an email from Alice. Alice said, Rick, you have used the terms prevailing wage and project labor agreement several times. We don't know what that is. And sometimes and I'm sorry, Alice. Sometimes I think people understand labor terms a little bit better than we actually do, because they're not things that we use on a daily basis. A project labor agreement is simply an agreement between all parties on a building project. Let's say you're building a bridge. So all the people who pour cement, all the iron workers, all the people who are doing wiring or whatever, the people who are paving, all the people who are working on this project agree that there are one set of rules. They're all going to agree to one set of rules to get the project done. So if there are any disputes, any problems, there's one body, there's one path to solve all of that, and one set of rules that everyone says, yeah, this is what we agree to. It seems to me the smartest, best way to get things done. Now, everyone says, well, that's what the unions want. And overwhelmingly, unions do agree. That's the way to get things done, because it's the best way of getting things done. So I'm a big supporter of them because what we've seen over the decades is that when you have a project labor agreement in place, projects get done on time, usually under budget, and they're quality projects. For me, that's simple. So it makes good common business sense. And it's amazing that corporate America doesn't want that kind of an agreement in place, because usually what comes with a project labor agreement is the prevailing wage. And that's what they're against, because they don't want to pay people decent wages. Now, prevailing wage is simply saying if you do a job on this project, you will be paid the prevailing wage of that area. Now, I hear this all the time. Oh, it's the union wage. And in some places, kind of it is. But a prevailing wage is simply the wage that's most often paid. It's not an average. It's not that. It's the one that's most often paid. If you had 10 people who were carpenters, and 6 of them were paid $25 an hour, 2 of them were paid $50 an hour, and 2 were paid $10 an hour, what would the prevailing wage be? It would be the one most often paid. It would not be the high or the low. It would be that most often paid wage. And interestingly enough, the wage that's most often paid in an area for construction work are the people, and the people who report them are unions, because they're proud of the wages that they negotiate. They're proud of the conditions that they provide for their members. They're proud of what they've built. So they report their wages. I would argue those people not so proud of the fact that they're cheating their workforce and don't want their workers knowing what each other are making so that they can pit them against each other. Therefore, they don't report. Well, those don't get counted. So if you have 10 contractors in an area, and 4 of them are union contractors and 6 of them are not, and the 4 that are union contractors all report their wages, and the 6 non-union contractors that are ashamed of the wages they pay, they don't report their wages. Clearly, the ones that reported, they're going to be what's considered the prevailing wage. And that's going to be a touch bit higher, which is why when you hear the anti-union folks going, we could build, projects, for, a quarter of the cost. And you go, no, you can't. Stop lying. Because the union advantage is usually somewhere between 18 and 30%. A building project, labor costs are only about a quarter of the costs of an entire project. So, kind of lying when they say that, if we just did away with the union advantage, that little bit, that they could build things more, it's crazy. What they really want is they want to cheat workers out of wages. And what we know in places that have prevailing wage laws, you have a local construction industry. You have local companies that do this stuff. So you don't have fly-by-night transient companies through building shoddy stuff and then running off like thieves in the night. You have people who, like I said the other day, their kids are sitting in the same classroom with mine after they put the roof on the school. And that's what we want. Now, we know in places that have done away with prevailing wage laws that you end up losing that local construction trade. You end up losing those skilled craftsmen who then go into other jobs because they are skilled workers. And you have a major brain drain. And then you end up with seeking transients to come through to build your projects when you need them done, because you don't have an ample supply of qualified people locally. That is dangerous. And while it may be cheaper, hey, we got it done cheap. Cheap ain't better. And cheap usually means shoddy. Cheap usually means, we're going to be paying a lot long term. So I hope that explanation helped. Because, as I said, I'm a huge supporter of prevailing wage laws. Because it's just the sheer fact of we're going to get better quality workmanship done. We're going to get stuff done on time as the numbers lay out. This isn't just me making this up. This is reality. There have been numerous studies on this. And I point to the tale of two bridges, the one in New York, the Tappan Zee, and the one in California, the Bay Bridge. One was done with under a project labor agreement that paid prevailing wage, came in on time, under budget, and is complete. And the one, on the other coast, didn't and ain't. I guess it'll never, from what I'm told, it's never going to be officially considered complete because they're continually having to adjust and repair things. So it seems like the simple part of it. And also the reverberation effect, and this is where you get into some of the wonky, weedy stuff, the reverberation effect of the additional wages that people locally are paid, into the local shops, into the movie theater, and the restaurants, and all of that stuff. Those wages that go through the local economy have a massive reverberation effect and actually help build and boost the local economy so that small businesses can thrive and entrepreneurs can do new things and all kinds of stuff. And this is why, again, I'm not a fan of, hey, let's cheat workers out of everything we can get out of them. Hey, let's not figure out how we can screw over the local plumber or pipe fitter or cement worker. Just kind of throwing that out there. But, I do love some of the rhetoric that I hear from my ABC contractor friends. I do. They spend a lot of time, effort, and energy on trying to convince us that somehow that cheaper is better. That their apprenticeship programs are anywhere near the union apprenticeship programs when they don't graduate near as many or many because all they're looking for is cheap labor. Whereas the union apprenticeship programs are looking to continue the craft, to pass on generations of knowledge for the future. That is a huge difference. When you have a union that's saying, hey, how do we pass our trade along? How do we pass along the tradition and the knowledge so that future generations can benefit what the past has learned and built, as opposed to I'm just looking for the cheapest labor that I can exploit for the short term. Again, I look at some of these ABC programs, and that's what I walk away with. But I appreciate the email, appreciate the thought. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. I do answer most emails. I used to say all, but I've been getting a lot of dumb ones lately. I've been going, no, I'm done here. I am not falling down the rabbit hole. So if you've got a dumb one and you're ignored, you know why. But if you got an honest question, I do answer all of those personally. Quick break, right back. Stick around. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1946. That was the day a general strike erupted in Oakland, California. Workers, mostly women, had been on strike for a month at 2 downtown department stores. Teamsters honored their picket lines and refused to make deliveries. Infuriated owners of Hastings and Conn's demanded their merchandise and turned to the city for help. And on this day, police assembled early in the morning to clear the streets of picketers. They attacked strikers, forcing them off the street and setting up a perimeter of machine guns to escort scab delivery trucks through the line. One striker recalled, I was black and blue for 6 months from their clubs. Outraged truck drivers, bus drivers, and streetcar operators all stopped, got out of their vehicles, and joined the strikers, quickly filling downtown Oakland. By the end of the day, the city was completely shut down. 142 AFL unions called for a labor holiday in support of the strikers, and now 130,000 workers were on strike in solidarity. UAW member Stan Weir recalled that it was the bus drivers, many just returned from the war, who led the strike. The streets that night had a carnival-like atmosphere. War vets led a march to City Hall to demand the resignation of the mayor and city council for their attempts to break the strike. The general strike quickly forced the administration to stop the scab herding. But local labor leaders were divided over what some considered a near insurrection and called the strike off 54 hours later. The retail workers were left to fight on their own for another 5 months. But for a few days, workers got a taste of their own power. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
Quote of the day, and I guess this goes along with what we talked about yesterday with Madison Cawthorn. We had Josh Remillard on, who's running against Cawthorn in North Carolina. Remillard said that Cawthorn said, there are these things, there's books, and they've got pages in them, lots of them. And you go, yeah, books generally have pages. I look at Tommy Tuberville, the senator from Alabama. He says, I've done more reading in the last year than I've probably done in the last 15. And I go, yeah, that actually makes sense. Probably the most honest thing he has ever said. And do you think he's actually reading the bills? I don't know. Here to share some thoughts on the craziness and where we are, I've asked our good friend Rich Ojeda to come talk with us. Rich, a former West Virginia state senator and currently the national spokesperson for No Dems Left Behind. Rich, thanks for taking time for us.
Anytime, man. I always enjoy it.
So, more pages than he's read in the last 15 years. Are you buying that he's burning the midnight oil, reading the legislation that's being... Are you buying that?
No, let me tell you something. That's not how it works. And you need to read the bills, but what they usually do is, if anything, they'll split it up with their staff and everybody will read a portion of it, and then they will come together and have a conversation. But for the most part, I guarantee you a lot of these people are lazy as can be.
Yeah, and there's no way Tommy Tuberville is reading any of the bills unless somebody jotted down a note, and that Post-it note is what he's considering a page.
I will tell you that reading legislative bills is the driest reading you will ever do in your life.
Uh-huh.
I mean, literally, that's one of the reasons why in the committees you have the legal expert that basically explains everything to the panel before the conversations kick off.
Yeah, no, the way we write these bills is really, but you have to with the kind of lawyers we've got, and you got to think of every possible angle that somebody's going to try and exploit. Now, yesterday we had on Josh Remillard, who I really like, running down in North Carolina's 13th congressional district. Fantastic guest, but we had him on because this Madison Cawthorn is turned into was a lunatic and is even worse now. Basically calling for a civil war, telling all the college kids, quit college. Very bizarre stuff. And, you add this to the Jesse Water comments the other day about, kill shot and ambush on Fauci. This heated rhetoric, you as someone who's been in war, does this concern you?
It does, because the truth is there's a lot of people out there that aren't smart enough to tell the difference between what somebody is basically just saying to try to beat their chest, and then somebody thinking that is like a call to action. Dr. Fauci is probably in danger, and it's a sad thing when you have a person that's doing everything in their power to try to save people's lives, and you have these people like the Madison Cawthorns and them that are literally have no problem saying things like, we're going to have to find a Second Amendment solution to this problem. I mean, it's absolutely atrocious, and I wish people would hurry up and wake up.
Yeah, no, it's frightening. Your state, West Virginia, I got to talk about Joe Manchin and where the Democrats are in this moment. We've had this conversation a number of times. This isn't new. That I believed Manchin was going to tank the Build Back Better plan. I've been saying this for months. No surprise here. I don't think you were surprised. Are you shocked by the number of people who seem to be surprised by this?
I am. And, what's really bothering me is that, this right here tells you Joe Manchin is bought and paid for. He took $1.5 million from Republican donors, and we believe that's why he tanked this bill. And, for Joe Manchin to sit and act like, this is an entitlement, West Virginia would benefit from the Build Back Better than any other state, more than any other state. Joe Manchin is a guy that has a $750,000 yacht, drives a $100,000+ Maserati. His wife is a millionaire. His daughter is a millionaire. His son is a millionaire. And of course, he says that if you continue giving these people the child tax credit, they're going to use that money for beer and drugs. And of course, if you give people paid leave, they're going to use it to go hunting. That right there tells you what Joe Manchin thinks about the people in his state. And I wish the people in the state would really look at that and realize that's exactly how Joe Manchin is acting, so that they would finally go ahead and turn off Joe Manchin. Because let me tell you something. You got a lot of Republicans that watch nothing but Fox News, and to them, some of these people think Joe Manchin is a hero because of this.
And this is the thing that I'm asking, because ultimately, the rubber has to meet the road somewhere. When that check stops coming, and we know that small amount of money, that $250 per kid or $300 for kids under 6, we know that money cut child poverty in half. In this country.
Yes.
And in West Virginia, I got to imagine that number is even higher, because childhood poverty is even much higher than in any other state. At some point, does the rubber meet the road to where you go, it was Joe Manchin who stopped this from helping us? Does that ever?
It's going to.
You think it is?
By January the 15th, when these people do not get that check, because the last check is December 15th, it's already been given. There's no more checks coming. And those people are going to wake up on the 15th of January and realize that they're not getting anything, and that their children have now fallen back into poverty. And it's absolutely unacceptable. Joe Manchin is a horrible person for his actions here. And I will tell you once again, everybody, if you have a child and you live in Southern West Virginia, you qualify for the child tax credit. We have an annual salary here of $26,000 a year. These people desperately need that. And Joe Manchin is taking that from them.
See, now, isn't this a place where your governor, a Republican, Jim Justice, former Democrat turned Republican Jim Justice, should be going, hey, the amount of revenue that's coming into the state is boosting our economy. It's helping our businesses. It's helping, alleviate some of the stress on the state to deal with the poverty issues. Isn't this a place for your governor to go, hey, something, little help, little something for the effort?
Yeah, I would think so. But I'll be honest with you. I don't think Joe Manchin is listening to anybody. The United Mine Workers of America have come out and said, Joe Manchin, we want you to rethink your vote here. We want you to support this. I mean, if the United Mine Workers of America can't convince Joe Manchin to do the right thing, then Joe Manchin's not listening to nobody in West Virginia. Joe Manchin is listening to the people that are writing him checks, and that's all he cares about.
No, I said the other day when the UMWA came out with their statement that, as tacit as it was historic nonetheless. The fact that they came out and said something to Joe Manchin, because they've, in my view, been at the hip for a very long time.
Yeah, Joe Manchin has used the United Mine Workers of America for years, and it's always been a guaranteed base for him, and it's benefited him greatly. And I will tell you right now that, I think Joe Manchin, I really do believe that Joe Manchin is going to run for governor in 2024, and Joe Manchin is going to tap into these Republicans down here. And even though, I'm hoping that enough Republicans realize that their children are struggling because of Joe Manchin, and they all choose to not. But the truth is that whoever runs against Joe Manchin on the Republican ticket will probably be no better. It'll probably be Patrick Morrissey, who sold us out to the big pharmaceutical companies when we could have got billions from them using us as their lab rats, and all we got was $2,000 or $2 million, and they got a slap on the wrist. His wife, by the way, was a lobbyist for those organizations.
Of course she was, because that's how it tends to work out. And this is where you go, this is where, as a voter, and I've had this argument a number of times, you look at both parties and you go, both parties suck. They're both sticking it to us. And, so when you go, hey, you got to vote for the Democrat, you go, really? How are they helping when you got Joe Manchin?
Yeah, no, I will tell you, West Virginia's in a rough place right now. And the mere fact, this right here kind of lets you know how fragile is our democracy, that one person from probably the most least populated state in the country that has lost population every single year for over a decade. How can that state's representative be the one that completely derails the Democratic agenda? I mean, there's got to be something, and I'm hoping that there's something that they can come up with that can absolutely turn things around, because if it can't, honestly, the Democrats have a bad problem because they're not telling their success stories. And that's taken us down this path where people are still thinking that the Republicans may be the best way to go.
Yeah. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show. We're here with Rich Ojeda, former West Virginia state senator and currently the national spokesperson for No Dems Left Behind. You can check out their site at nodemsleftbehind.com. We'll get links out on social media. You can check out the work that Rich is doing there. Now, Rich, I'm looking at, we're taking the Christmas break here. On the other side, Democrats are going to have to regroup, refocus, re-energize, re-steel the spine, whatever, have a message going forward. What do you, as someone who's been in political life, what do you see that message being? Is it where Biden seems to be leading us on the voting rights part of things? Do we come back after the Build Back Better Act? Where do you see things going?
I think they're going to try to bring back the Build Back Better, but I think that the Voting Rights Act is the key. That is going to be the key. I think that they're going to use something which is called, I think, the Guarantee Clause, that hasn't been used in over 232 years, that can allow the Voting Rights Act to go through. I think that's going to be something. I know that the Democrats are also going to try their best to make sure that this January 6th commission can expose all of these people for who they truly are. But I think, once again, the Democratic Party is going to have to come to the table and really come up with the right messaging for the 2022 campaign. Because if we don't tell our success stories, if we don't tell everybody that the reason why you got your packages on time was because Joe Biden gave a 100% or $100 tax to every single Connex that sit on the port, that's a victory for us. And we've got to be able to tell that victory, because if we don't, the Republicans will make something up.
No, that's an excellent point you made there, because we're seeing the stories. Hey, Christmas packages, mysteriously, they're starting to show up. The supply chain's not so gummed up right now. Gee, I wonder why.
And gas is starting to drop too, by the way. Now they're scratching off the Joe Biden stickers at the gas pumps.
And now we're going to put, hey, thanks, Brandon. Is that where we go next?
I say, look, I'm all about it. I want everybody to know that Joe Biden is absolutely hitting home runs almost every single day. I think if Joe Biden continues going down this path, the economy's doing well. I mean, the stock market's higher than it's ever been before. If Donald Trump is going to scream the stock market and try to get credit for it, then we got to give the same credit to Joe Biden when he's beat even Donald Trump. Yeah. But I really do hope that we're going to start to see some justice taking place in the early part of the year. Donald Trump is supposed to be deposed on the 7th of January by the New York State Attorney General, Letitia James. I hear he's also supposed to be deposed on the 10th of January as well. So I believe there's a lot of things that are going to happen within the first 3 to 5 months of the new year that I think is going to open a lot of people's eyes. But once again, the Democrats better be telling their successes.
No, absolutely. There's a lot coming in the next month. Now, you brought up the January 6th commission, and my congressman, Scott Perry, has refused to cooperate with the January 6th commission. And I guess I'm not surprised that Perry is in this mix, because I've always said if there was ever going to be a coup attempt in this country, it would be someone with the military credentials of someone like Scott Perry. And I've said for years, I see him as someone who's very dangerous, good-looking guy, military credentials, well-spoken, doesn't appear on the outside to be crazy like a Marjorie Taylor Greene or a Matt Gaetz or a Lauren Boebert, but policy-wise, authoritarian and, extreme. And I'm not surprised to see that he's in the middle of all this.
Well, I think that they're going to find themselves between a rock and a hard place. I think that you have to understand that if they continue to succeed and they go down the path that they want to create an authoritarian dictatorship in this country. And oh, by the way, the Supreme Court has to also sit back and realize that if we establish an authoritarian dictatorship, the Supreme Court is null and void, because in a dictatorship, the dictator is the one who says what's right and what's wrong. So I believe that the Supreme Court is going to do the right thing. And I believe that these people are going to find themselves in the crosshairs. They don't want to. Jim Jordan is already threatening that if you call members of Congress in front of the January 6th Commission and we take back power, we are going to absolutely bring ramifications that are not going to be good for the Democratic Party. And that right there is what we need to highlight to let these people know that these people tried to destroy our democracy, and now they're trying to use threats to keep us from going after them.
Yeah, well, it's like any crime syndicate. They're going to, circle the wagons and figure out how to attack who's coming after them.
Yes, and you also need to know that they're talking about before the end of this year, they're saying that Donald Trump, Don Jr., Eric, and Ivanka may be indicted.
And let's hope that happens. But I'm looking at some of the things that are coming out, and I'll be honest. I'm surprised at the number of career military people who are in the midst of this stuff. And I've always said, and this is history as well. Most of these coups come from military leaders. Are you surprised by the number of people that are career military people who are involved in this?
Well, I'm looking at somebody like Michael Flynn. Michael Flynn did what he did because he failed. Now, make no mistake about it. He retired as a 3-star general, so he had a very successful career, but he failed, and that's why he didn't make 4-star general. And I believe that's one of the reasons why he jumped on board with Donald Trump, because he felt that Donald Trump would elevate him to a level even higher than that. We've got people out there that obviously are not doing the right things. But once again, I believe in our military. I believe that our military will do what's right. I believe that our military understands people like General Milley. He completely understands what's going on. And once again, he supports Joe Biden's administration. He tried to work with Donald Trump. But Donald Trump was Donald Trump. But I really believe that at the end of the day, our military is solid, and I think that our military will always do the right thing.
Yeah, last line of questioning I've got for you. It's the holiday season. I hope you and your family the best, the healthiest, happiest holiday possible. Are we excited for the new year? Are we looking with great anticipation to the coming year, or little trepidation? Where are we going?
No. I think we're excited. I think that on January the 1st, everybody needs to wake up and realize that it is now the 2022 campaign season, and we've got to get to work. And everybody out there has to understand that if we want to maintain our hold on the House or increase that, and the same thing in the Senate, we've all got to get to work. We've got to do everything in our power to make sure that everybody is registered to vote. Everybody's knocking on doors. Everybody's making phone calls. Everybody is reaching out to their family members and making sure that they understand the path that we need to be on. If you've got somebody that's a Trump supporter, you've got to do everything in your power to try to show them the right way, show them the light, and hope that they will wake up before it's too late.
Get out there and spread the good word. And also, I keep saying Democrats got to do something on the voting rights. That
Absolutely.
has to happen.
Priority number one, right there.
Has to happen. But Rich, I appreciate the time. Again, to you and yours, the best, healthy, happy holiday season. I look forward to having you back in the new year.
All the way, my brother.
Good stuff. As always, our good friend Rich Ojeda. Make sure you check out the work that he does over at No Dems Left Behind. We'll get links out on social media. I can check out the work that they do. Seriously, in the new year, enjoy the holiday, re-engage, re-energize, refocus, and make sure you're registered to vote. Maybe re-register to vote. If anything, that is the key. I'm going to take a quick break right here. When we come back, our good friend Bob Ney going to be here to share some thoughts on the top stories of the day. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Let's talk. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 2008. That was the day that Walmart stores agreed to settle 63 wage and hour lawsuits across 42 states for at least $352 million and possibly as much as $640 million. Walmart and Sam's Clubs were accused of failing to pay overtime, requiring workers to work off the clock, erasing hours from time cards, and preventing workers from taking meal and rest breaks as guaranteed guaranteed by state law. The lawsuits involved hundreds of thousands of then current and former employees. You'd think they would have learned their lesson after having to shell out that amount of money. In fact, they have had to settle at least 7 more class action wage and hour lawsuits and remain a defendant in dozens more. By 2012, Walmart had settled at least 9 Equal Employment Opportunity Commission cases related to disability, gender, racial and religious discrimination in hiring, and sexual harassment. Egregious labor violations have persisted throughout their stores. Systematic wage theft, health and safety dangers, and abusive conditions on the job have continued for years. Chronic short staffing creates unsafe working conditions. In 2012 alone, they were repeatedly cited and fined by OSHA for serious violations such as blocked emergency exits, lack of safety procedures for control of power hazards, and other problems. Employees who worked with our Walmart organizers often found they were targeted with threats, reduction in hours, and terminations. More recently, Walmart has had to settle a discrimination suit over health insurance benefits for same-sex spouses. The high cost of labor violations and the low wages at Walmart cost taxpayers on average $6.2 billion a year in public assistance for many of their workers.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So on Wednesday, Mary Gay Scanlon, representative from the Philadelphia area, was carjacked by, I think they said it was like 5 people were involved. 3, I guess, at the time. 2 people came up to her. Someone showed a gun. They took her car keys. They ended up finding him in Delaware. Still had the keys on him, a 19-year-old guy. And look, this is another one of those moments where it's a tragedy. It's horrible. But Mary Gay Scanlon's been one of the people who's been saying we need to, reform the police. So immediately the right wing went ballistic, going, see, this is what happens when you defund the police. I don't ever think that she said that she wanted to defund them. I think, like a lot of people, they're saying use resources differently. But I know there were a lot of people celebrating the fact that she was carjacked, and sadly, in some of these places, crime is getting crazy. But this is the polar world that we seem to find ourselves. Anyway, here to share some thoughts on the top stories of the day before this holiday season. I've asked our good friend, former Ohio Congressman and political analyst Bob Ney to come talk with us. Bob, thanks for taking time for us.
Thank you, Rick.
So what do you make of this? In this day and age, people in Congress are under attack and threats from all different directions. This one, well, just kind of random.
This one was random, and she wasn't targeted. I remember when former Speaker Dennis Hastert was in a parade in his district in Illinois, and some guy had a few beverages and threw a water balloon up at him, and the guy was charged. He was Speaker of the House, so the guy was charged with a assault felony. And I think the guy's comment was, "I had no concept who he was." He just said, "I just threw it." But some things happen that are random. It's not planned, and her carjacking was not, planned against her in particular.
No.
Now the news, the Fox News and the right are running a series of stories. They're adding in the Detroit mayor. They're adding in the mayor of San Francisco, and then they're talking about, there's something that the Philadelphia Democratic mayor said, and then there was Illinois' Democrat senator carjacked in Illinois. So they're putting all of this together in a scenario that each person was a, quote, defund the police person.
Right. And look, there are some people out there who have said that. I am not one of them.
Right.
I've said from the beginning, and this was my original statement, I support the police when they're not wrong.
Right.
I think we need to add more resources to deal with a lot of our other problems. But the idea of and I actually had someone say we should abolish the police. I'm going, well, that's idiotic. That'll never happen.
Right.
And let's hope it doesn't. But there are things that need to be done.
Sure.
And I look at today, obviously today the verdict coming out of Minnesota of the woman police officer who, says she thought she was reaching for her taser, pulled her gun, and killed this Dante Wright guy.
Right.
I got to be honest, there's a lot about this case that, police reform has to be looked at in the vein of, do you pull somebody over for expired tag and an air freshener on the rearview mirror? I don't know.
Or do you pull them over, and if they take off, what type of pursuit do you follow?
Right.
Remember the UPS guy that they started firing at the truck and he was killed?
Yeah.
Nobody ever said who shot him. He wasn't shot. He was shot, I think, by the police, most likely, But there's certain incidences when you have to do something as a police officer, no question, just like you said. And then certain incidents where you don't. Here's the sad part. It's verbiage in this business. The Patriot Act. Didn't that sound so loving?
It did.
It's a Patriot Act. How could you not
How could
support
you be against
the Patriot
that?
Act?
Yeah.
I didn't support the Patriot. I was an Osama bin Laden lover. I didn't support the Patriot Act. Then you look at defund the police, and that verbiage got out there when it should have been reform.
Right.
The word reform, and defund got out there. Now it's attached to every single thing. If you want to reform, of course, it can always be made better.
No, I just happened to, and this is just a random thing. I was flipping through Netflix, and I came across a documentary titled 137 Shots, and it's the story of what happened in Cleveland, where this couple was shot 137 times by I guess it was like 13 cops. There was a chase of at one point 60 police cars. And it was a minor traffic violation that they had run off on, and they knew who the people were. They knew who they were. They had their, and they knew them personally, knew the car, and didn't have to go on this whole long thing. And ultimately, execute this couple with one cop actually jumping up on the hood of the car and firing multiple times into the car after everybody had a massive barrage, and nobody was held accountable. And you go, how is that possible? 137 shots. That to me is a bit extreme.
Oh, it's excessive, and so there's certain situations, and I understand somebody comes face to face, somebody has a toy gun, they think it's a real gun. Those are different scenarios. But if somebody stopped, for a routine traffic stop, and remember the young man who went to get his wallet as instructed, and they shot him.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you do? I think you almost have to put your hands on the wheel and say, my wallet is over here, and you have to be careful. But I think that training and things like that would be wanted. Look, there's a lot of police officers that want reform. That's another misnomer. Not all, but there are police officers that want this to be reformed,
Yeah, because I don't think that they want the kind of...
They don't want
the kind of turmoil that's coming. I mean, I can't imagine being a police officer in these days when immediately you're viewed in a negative light. Look, I think, most cops are trying to do the right thing. I think most of them are decent. I've known a bunch over the years.
Right.
They have their problems like everybody else. But I think at the end of the day, they want to go home without any hassle too. But as one told me years ago, I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6, and they're always going to err on the side of I'm going home first.
Right. And so I think again the word defund got out. Now there are some people that do want to defund, but a lot of the people that are being accused of it don't want to defund. They want to reform.
Yeah, crazy. Any thoughts on the verdict on this Potter woman?
I read I didn't extensively read the case, but I read a lot of the reports on it, and it was a tough one. I think the thing that she had going against her was the nature of the stop, and then the aggressive force used after that. Do I think she reached and thought, I'm going to pull my gun and pretend I thought I pulled my taser? No, I don't think so, from what I read. But the fact of, again, how they handled a certain routine stop was obviously deemed aggressive. But the court system has spoken, and I think it has to be respected.
Yeah. I personally, I was kind of surprised. I thought more people would be sympathetic. I personally don't know how you're a police officer for 26 years and you reach for the something and you don't know the feel. I don't
and
know.
if it's the case, it feels like a gun, they better sure change it.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. I mean, and that
Yes,
is
for
that's
sure.
the point right there. A little earlier, I had an Ohio State representative on talking about the number of assaults that are going
Right.
on in hospitals across Ohio. And you had an interesting comment that you sent me that I thought, because I had asked what's going on in the state
Right.
to protect them. And you actually brought up, something that you did years ago
Yes.
on police dogs, which could, I guess, be, if we're going to compare police dogs to nurses, would be, I guess, okay at a certain level as long as we're protecting them.
Well, right, and let's make that comparison of what happened with police animals and also policemen and women. It was brought to my attention that you could take a bull stick and almost beat somebody to death, and it wouldn't necessarily be a felony charge. So I put into law, and it passed in the House and Senate overwhelmingly. There was only one vote against it in the state Senate, which happened to be my opponent in a later election, so you can imagine the ads. And so overwhelming Democrat support with my legislation. And what it said was the ability to allow for a felony charge if you injure, if a potential criminal injures a police animal. Now, why would that be? Well,
Horse.
sometimes they kill the or maim the drug dogs, or the police horse. So I included that with also police people, and it would be up to them the ability to charge a felony. And if somebody's beaten with a pool stick and they're a police person and it's a misdemeanor, that just wasn't right. Now, what shocked me, Rick, when I brought the bill up, I got it through the Democrat House and everything, and the Republican Senate, but what shocked me was the Prosecutors Association went nuts on the bill.
Why?
The Prosecutors Association. You're taking away the discretion of the prosecutor. No, I'm not. I didn't say you must charge. I gave the ability to charge. No, you're taking... Well, anyway, it was so emotional, people kind of told the Prosecutors Association get out of the way. So they remained, quote, neutral on the bill at the end. They didn't oppose or support. But I will bet you that you're going to find out, shockingly, who, in fact, would go against a piece of legislation, because I relate this healthcare worker just to the bill I passed. We made it a potential felony to assault somebody doing their duty. What is the difference of making a piece of legislation? There's a history, if you look at my bill. Just substitute healthcare workers.
No, I think you, at this point you have to, because look, we did a little Christmas shopping today with the kids, and there's a candy counter at one of the stores we go to. Now, candy counters are a thing of the past. I mean, it's you probably. Is there any store you can think of that has one of the old-fashioned candy counters that you remember?
We actually still have some, believe it or not.
I haven't seen one in years.
I've seen one.
But there's one in our
Now,
neighborhood.
it's not the same price as the old-fashioned candy counter, okay?
Yeah, I mean, it's where you could go, give me one of those and one of those, and there's a whole slew of stuff.
Right.
And the kids love it. So every time we go there, and I have to stop and get them something, and myself too. Let's not get carried away. But the poor woman behind the counter, she's like, I cannot wait for this holiday to be over, because people have just been so abusive and so angry and calling me, all kinds of names, liar, all this stuff. And I'm going, at a candy counter? And she goes, you have no idea. And I'm going, I can't, look, this is a candy counter. How can you be unhappy at a candy counter? I can imagine what nurses and doctors have to go through.
Look, I as you know, I also flip houses. And I'm out at stores all the time, and I am seeing such an assault, verbal, on employees that it's because products aren't on the shelf, or the machine didn't work fast enough, or they lost their number. I mean, people screaming in places. So I can't even imagine, translate that from Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever, I can't even imagine what's going on in the emotion side.
Yeah.
When somebody's, got an emotional trauma, healthcare related wise, of what they're going to do to the healthcare workers.
Jeez.
Take it out on them. If they do it to the employees at Lowe's and Home Depot, et cetera, just think what would happen with the healthcare workers.
It's just
it's bad.
It's just horrible times.
It's terrible.
Look, I'm hoping, I'd hope that the holiday season would bring, the festive joy and happiness, and we'd be a little nicer. Smiles would be a little more readily given. But I'll tell you, the number of people I see, just scowling and angry.
Tough.
I don't know, man.
It's tough. Tough
Scary
world.
times. Finally, I wanted to get Trump made some comments that I wanted to get your opinion on. He came out and said that the vaccines work. People should get them, and the vaccines aren't killing anybody. You surprised by that?
Well, I was at first, and I thought about something, Rick. Let's stereotype numbers because I don't know the exact ones. I don't pretend to. In general, what group of people are not getting vaccinations? In general, politically.
Politically, you're far right and you're far left.
Okay, yeah. Who votes for Donald Trump?
You're far right and you're far left.
Trump is starting to realize he's losing votes.
Okay.
Okay? That they're not getting vaccinated. And they're getting, I'm serious, and they're getting COVID.
Yeah.
I think somebody has convinced him, look, it's your supporters that are potentially not going to be there.
Yeah. No, that's what I've been saying all along. It's the way you thin the herd.
So, that's part of it. And he's gotten the shot, so he can't deny he has. He was booed the other day. I'm glad. Look, I'm glad he's saying it.
Yeah.
I'm happy for that. But there needs to be more done to convince people. It's bizarre because most people that are not getting the vaccination, are obviously getting the COVID. And there's another thing that you said on your show, and it's so true. And I got berated to death for this. The amount of people that are being denied, quote, elective. I know I don't like to personalize this because it doesn't matter. It's me. There's other people that it happens to. But I have 2 cuts on my face because during the beginning of COVID, I couldn't get in to get a checkup. And by the time I got in to get a checkup, guess what? I had basal cell carcinoma.
Oh, no.
In 2 spots on my face. Thank goodness it didn't go another 6 months, and so there are people out there, cardiac treatment, etc. And people, it's only elective. No, the elective can lead to death.
Yep.
And there's no statistics on it. I've tried to surf over and over because I was so angry at the anesthesiologist that was, telling me, stick to politics. You don't know what you're talking about medically because he was trying to defend not getting vaccinations.
Jeez. I think I'd be finding another doctor. But, Bob, I want to wish you the healthiest, happiest, best holiday possible. And I look forward to you back in the new year.
Thank you. You too, and your family.
Good stuff. Thank you. Our good friend, Bob Ney. And everyone, I wish everyone a healthy and happy holiday season. As I said, this is our last show of 2021. Over the next couple of days, we'll be rolling out some of our favorite interviews, some of the people that we enjoyed talking to the most over the last several months, some of the topics. All there in our best ofs over the next couple of days. Still want to hear from you. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Let us know what you think of the future. Share what you're doing for the holidays. All of the things that hopefully we can begin to come together in the new year and be a little happier, a little healthier, and start to rebuild, re-engage, and move the country forward, move us in a direction that is going to be a better place. And that's all I got. I'll see you next year. Thanks for being here. If you missed any of today's program, thericksmithshow.com. That's where you go to get the podcast. The Rick Smith Show app on the smartphone. Take the program on the go wherever you go. And as always, you can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Follow us on social media at Rick Smith Show on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all of that. Like, subscribe, share, tune in. I appreciate it. Happy holidays to you and yours. We'll see you back here next year.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
Can antibiotic medicines, long hailed as miracle drugs, be too much of a good thing? Yes. 2 factors are at work here. First, bacteria, one of the earliest forms of life on Earth, are miracles in their own right, with a stunning ability to outsmart the antibiotic drugs through rapid evolution. Second is the rather dull inclination of us supposedly superior humans to overuse and misuse antibiotic medicines. Every time we take an antibiotic to kill some bad bacteria that is infecting our bodies, a few of the infectious germs are naturally resistant to the drug. So they survive, multiply, and become a colony of superbugs that antibiotics can't touch. Multiply this colony by the jillions of doses prescribed for everything from deadly staph infections to the common cold, and we get the, quote, antibiotic paradox. The more we use them, the less effective they become, for they're creating a spreading epidemic of immune superbugs. A big cause of this is the push by drug companies to get patients and doctors to reach for antibiotics as a cure-all. For example, millions of doses a year are prescribed for children and adults who have common colds, flu, sore throats, etc. Nearly all of these infections are caused by viruses, which cannot, repeat, cannot be cured with antibiotics. Taking an antibiotic for a cold is as useless as taking a heart drug for heartburn. The antibiotics will do nothing for your cold, but it will help establish drug-resistant superbugs in your body. That's not a smart trade-off. This is Jim Hightower saying, in fact, it's incomprehensibly stupid. Antibiotics are invaluable medicines we need for serious, life-threatening illnesses, but squandering them on sore throats has already brought us to the brink of superbugs that are resistant to everything. That's the nightmare of all nightmares.